Anyway, let's talk about this States thing. Abi is a whole other story that I'm sure we're going to
continue. Because the Abi story comes after I come back. Yeah. So the tour happens in June. We'll head out to the States in June. That was my first time
out of the country.
Out of the country. I'd never been out of the country before.
Even UG?
Never been.
So that was a nice start.
Yeah, to start in America. With all the clothes which I went and threw them immediately. All my luggage. I went there like, so we can get all this. Like,
and you're being paid?
Yeah, we're being paid. Well, for me and JJ, which later we ended up causing because they were giving us like it was way less than what the other three girls were. But that's why I also learned the power of negotiating. Mm-hmm. If you want something, no one is gonna think for you.
Yep.
You have to state it because sometimes we don't state it because you're afraid they'll reject you. Mm-hmm. But just risk it. They may just give it to you. But you see, at that time I didn't know. Me, I was just excited to go to the States. Mm-hmm. And so the United States ended up coming like that arc in your career. Mm-hmm. That's when I said music this is for life.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I now said I am a pianist. I'm officially a piano player. If someone ever says, what are you? I'm like a musician and I play the piano.
Okay, tell us about the experience that you had in the States.
First of all,
what were you doing? Where were you going?
Okay, the US, the tour was based in the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And so it was crazy because that's when even I learned about live performance and what goes through it. Because the way they had set it up is that we as the artists were the ones who were given a van, travel into all these places in the Midwest and the West, starting from Colorado, going all the way up, start coming down. So we're the ones who had to get the address there by ourselves. So those are the days of MapQuest, where you have to print those directions, and then go to the church, set up, because we had the gear at the back of the van.
With you?
So we were 6 of us, 7, because now FJ Mwangi.
Okay.
Which is another interesting story because he was in Nairobi school.
Yes, in fact you mentioned
him. Yeah, I mentioned him. Yeah, and he's a mad organ player, And so he joined the tour because he was in he was in Berkeley College of Music. Mm-hmm. Who was his roommate? Eric Onaina.
No way.
So that's when I started getting to understand about Eric and it was exciting. And then of course I knew him from Patch.
Yeah.
So now he ended up taking the role of the bass player. Mm-hmm. So he ended up being, and then he had already done a YFC tour before. Mm-hmm. So he knew the workings. I think even he had done 2 before. So he knew the workings of the Youth for Christ tour. So we did how many states? We did most of the West Coast and the East Coast.
Okay, so you arrive into a place you set up.
Either school. So we'd do school and it was mostly, especially when not even especially, all the time. Set up in the get to arrival at school. Set up. We're the ones who do the assembly at 8 a.m. Play do 30 minutes, interact with the kids. Sit down, travel to the next destination, which is 4 hours away.
But the aim was to raise funds.
Yeah, it was to raise funds for the project.
Yeah, so you talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, what we're doing, and then there was a video. Sometimes we play for kids, not necessarily, especially the schools. But now in the evenings there was special services and meetings that were set up for us. So Wednesday evening, most churches in the States have got Wednesday, Friday services. So we do that, and we did that for an entire year, where we set up, sat down, travel for 4 hours, and then you're in this small space.
An entire year.
Yeah, 10 months. 10 months, 10 and a half years, 10 or 11 months, yeah, almost a year.
And doing 3-4 gigs a week.
3? Are you crazy? We'd do, let's say Tuesday 2, because Monday we're not working. Mm-hmm. So, and Tuesday was sometimes Tuesday wouldn't. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So when I was hearing Mudhoni talk about her story, I us guys didn't even a crazier schedule. We were doing Monday, we do in the morning 2 shows.
No, Monday you don't do. Monday.
No, sorry. Wednesday we do 2 shows. Mm-hmm. Probably even there might be a 3rd show at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. And then travel 3 hours to the next Nini in the evening. Set up, do the exact same thing. So sometimes we'll be hosted by families, other times we'll be put up in a motel. Mm. Get up in the morning like at 4. So sometimes you don't sleep. Do the same thing. So an average, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Saturday is madness.
Those are church days.
So probably in a week we're doing like even 10 shows.
That's insane. For 10 months.
10 months. If someone asked me would I ever do that, I absolutely never, ever do that thing again. Because it's so taxing. Because and then we were new to it. Because we were thrown into like pro type of tours.
Yep.
Because you're talking about like guys who have been in the business who do that type of touring.
Yep.
So even mentally not prepared. So you can even start you can free the relationships that you are. Because you go in as friends, you're in this same space, you start fighting with each other, domains happen, So
You start dating.
But they had made it exclusive, like you can't.
Yeah.
There's no room for
dating.
Yeah, because that just complicates the entire chemistry.
Yeah, you can say that in theory, but in practical.
No, it's true. If you're feeling if
you start spending this much time with somebody.
Yeah, no, it happens because we are human beings. But you just have to also teach yourself that you don't have to go with how you feel.
Yeah.
If it happens later, see, even in a workspace, you can feel a chick and you're like, whoa, but then you're like, and then in a tour, it just becomes completely complicated, especially, and I've heard stories where when artists start dating, it spoils the entire tour to the point where some guys have to leave, get other personnel, because the dynamics changes,
I think it's Jagged Edge and SWV. They just cause drama.
It just cause it's because now 2 or 3 people are not. It changes the entire dynamics of the tour. So they had made it very clear that no. And it is true. Even before you go in a tour, before you go, you're not attracted, but that close proximity, you become close. But anyway, so
actually, it's Jagged Edge and one of the chick from Destiny's Child, the ones who were kicked out.
You see, exactly my point.
That's part of what led to that.
My point. Because it just complicates the entire tour. So even the people who are booking you, now it just becomes a nini. And then what if someone gets pregnant? What do you do? Because now how that jeopardizes
the whole mission that you need to do.
So now and that let's say that chick is a major singer in like one of the main cogs of the group.
Yep.
So that's why nah.
Yeah. Let me ask, did you guys bump into Milele at this time?
I'm coming to that.
Okay, cool. Still on
so
the
we
tour.
have done the entire tour, and then because not the entire tour, we've done half. We're halfway. This is around December. Now we are starting to do an extensive run in California. And so California, that's where the Milele guys are based. So they got wind that we are around. So me and Kanji, that's where me and Kanji now became friends. Because now they became like our KY. But then, like, I have this thing with Christian, where Kingangi.
Yeah.
Well, up till now we greet each other that way. Like, when are you going? Because the problem where I'm saying I used to ask them when are you going is they would come and just derail us. We're supposed to be practicing. These guys are looking for they're talking to these chiles. And they're just you're doing exactly what so it was upsetting me because I'm like we're not concentrating.
So this is where Kanji found Mwendi, where Kanji found his wife.
Absolutely. 100%.
This was the moment. So the outsiders were.
The outsiders, because I think they knew, like, us guys, now the outsiders are like, oh, this is a very fly chiles here. Let's go in there.
That's crazy.
So that's when I met Milele, and then they started really hanging out, and of course now Kanji they started serious friending, some good friending with Wendy, and then and of course now the rest is history.
Yeah.
And so the entire run in California, we're always every so often we'll be together.
That's so cool.
And that's when I started hanging out with Kanji, and he started telling me what he wanted to do, what he's interested in, and that's when I learned about the Musicians Institute, where Kanji was. And I told him that I'm interested in joining a college. So I told him that Berklee College of Music is a bit too expensive. So like, no, like actually some students and former teachers of Berklee actually teach at the MI, Musicians Institute. Apply. When you go back home after the tour, apply. These are the whatever. And then he put me in touch via email to one of the deans or something. So she sent me a package when I came back, and I sent the papers, and I was accepted.
Yo.
At the Musicians Institute, yeah. It was a degree in music performance. So that's after the tour. So, but inside the tour, I also found, now from a personal point of view, that's where a lot of the stuff from the fire accident, 7 years later, started coming out. Because now I started doing this solo during the shows. I do these solo performances, and even my playing became really good. Because now I started really playing like now I'm inside the thing, and of course the music. We're in the land
of jazz.
I'm in the heart of jazz.
Yeah.
You go to a store. Those are the days when you buy CDs at a Best Buy. You know, you go and pack all the. I think when I came back from the States, I think like 500 CDs or 600, because there was so much music.
Yeah.
And then now I started playing. But then also as I was playing, the playing now helped me even understand many questions that I'd had over the years. You know. Why did it happen to me? Why? How come God? I'm like, you've been, all these questions that I've been having. So there's one service that I broke. I think that's the day that I actually broke down for that event. You know, it was one service that was, and I think when all the guys who were there would remember, it just broke, And I was like, wow, and I was like, it's okay, there's nothing wrong. That's when I was like, acceptance, because before, I think as a pastor, I used to get upset. I'd catch a lot of feelings before I'd this raging thing. I wouldn't be like shout, but I'd take things personally, and I'd be so upset at things, But that's when I was like, okay, I think now I'm starting to accept that, it happened to me. There's nothing wrong. And a lot of the things that I'd been feeling, that had been percolating outside, like self-worth, all started coming out. And I'd played a piece, but at the end of the service, I just sat down. I couldn't go. I was just bawling out.
It came out.
Yeah, and I think that was now, I'd say it was...
Letting it go.
And as much as I'd healed generally, not even generally, I'd healed physically, but that's when the journey of the
inside,
the PTSD and the depression and all those the pain. That's when I looked at it, and that tour was.
I want to ask a question to do with this whole space that you're talking.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you play, I remember now Generation 2 of Kijiji would always say, "Hey, let Aroro come and play some Jesus keys." The reason why I've said that is what's music and spirituality, or music, and for you, did you feel that music had this other power in essence?
Actually, that's a very good question you ask, because even that's what informs me now, because it started at Youth for Christ. Because for me, music became a channel for me, because I was like, if this music that I play, God can use it to heal me. Then in the same way, someone who hears when I play, let also God reach them at their point of need.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm not for me, it's like it has become so natural to me that it's not like it's even a mission. It's who I am now. So anytime I play, even when I'm testing a keyboard, just recently because now I work at the guitar center as an instructor. I was testing out a keyboard. There's a new keyboard that came out last year. So I was just sitting down and playing. So this lady just shows up, and she's listening to me play, and then I turn out just to acknowledge and say thank you, and I'm seeing her wiping her eyes. She's like, "You're playing." I was like, so sometimes when I don't realize it, because I think for me, you're right. It's I just become a channel. It's like let God let God do what He has to do. So for me, it's an opportunity for people to meet God. So it's yes, there's the times when you're like, we can't be wilding out. But even the wilding out, I'm like,
it's still away. It's
yeah,
still away for you to express.
So it's just I'm like a pipe, you know?
Yeah.
So and that's what music has become for me. And it happened at that tour is when I was like, this is I think my mission. Not even I said I think, because now it didn't crystallize until at the end of the tour. I was like, aha. So one of the things God has called me to is to bring healing, to bring a sense of peace. Even when life throws things at you, let my music, anytime I play, give you a sense of hope. And if God decides to fix your life situations right there, so be it. Now on the tandem side is that for me to get to that point, I have had to encounter a lot of pain, because I'm also playing from a point of pain, you know, personal, physical, and even years later,
emotional.
Yeah, I've had to deal with such crises, you know, personal things. You know, it doesn't stop. But I've remembered that, you know, I always remind myself that even for me, I play music to myself. You know, sometimes when I have nothing to say, when I encounter some crazy, ridiculous situations, when you know those situations when you know you're at a corner, like I don't have any option, I just sit. I sit and I go and have a good night's sleep. I'm like, no, what? I'll let tomorrow deal with its own stuff. So music for me, it's that. I'm just but a vessel, nothing else.
That's powerful to hear this story, because I have experienced your keys. That's why I've even asked you that question. The Jesus keys. I remember you guys, and don't let Arro jump on that piano. You guys was that Makamasi session.
You guys are like a Makamasi session. You guys are so silly. Why do you say calling it Makamasi session? I don't know. They started calling it Makamasi session.
Yeah, we would leave. Can you remember? Oh, and we'll get to Mavuno, that Go song.
Oh yeah.
That song used to. Yeah.
And for me, and you're right. I think that tour is when I was like God showed me like, yes, you've been through a difficult patch of your life, discovering yourself, unanswered questions, but God likes using wounded soldiers and wounded people because you understand. So when someone comes and I empathize. When someone comes and tells me, because like I feel what you're feeling, you know. I know what it is to be hooked up to tubes. I know how it feels to, I shouldn't be alive. I should have died. Yeah. As I speak to you here, my mom always tells me that you even when I go, sometimes I tell them, hey, life is showing me things. They're like, don't remember. She's like, always anytime you feel like, look at your hands. So sometimes I always tell myself, I look at my hands, I'm like, you know what? Yeah.
I've just finished Doris Maioli's CTA.
Yeah.
And I summarized it in one thing: God doesn't waste pain.
No, He doesn't. And it's true when you're inside the mix, when you're in the whirlwind, it is life when you're in the midst of it, you're like, this is it. Sometimes you're like, this is it, or how am I going to move from here? But I think I've also taught myself, and I think for me, I have that blessing. This have ended up becoming a blessing when I find myself in a very tough situation that I don't understand. Let's look at myself. I look at my hands.
That is so powerful.
And I say, hey,
you guy.
This was once upon a time. This was a piece of my thigh, and it's on my hand. And now I feel like, okay, I can move on. Move on. Yeah. So,
bro, that's a heavy one, but I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like the nails.
Yeah.
It's like exactly. It's like the nails.
Yeah. And not to say that I am like some champion, no.
Yeah.
And not to say that there are no situations that this is the worst. I've been even in deep personal crises, and that's when I sit down and play. And that YFC tour, oh man, it changed my life. It changed my life.
I love it.
And for me, I've got this thing I noticed that for me, like some major milestones in my life happens in sevens in some strange way.
We've got numbers.
Yeah. The fire happened when I was 14. This thing for IFC 21, 28, I'll come when something else happened. 35, the idea of moving to the States happened when I was 35. So I'm like, ah. So I was like, so the other day I was like, 42 next year. What's going down? 42?
Okay, so let's go back to 21.
Yeah, 21.
Now you come back.
I come back.
Okay, first of all, is there any other moment? No, actually, I
No,
think that's momentous.
when I come back is now getting accepted at my musicians institute.
Yes.
But then it ended up becoming so expensive. So my parents are like, and then they were not offering scholarships at that time.
Yeah.
So I was like, man.
Here we go again.
But this one did hurt. This was not like a moment of despair. Okay. No, so there's just disappointment. But I was excited to come back. You know, I'd grown a little taller. I'd changed my look. I had an earring. You know, I had specs. I started my head. So I was looking like this fresh guy. I had another leather jacket that looked so high. So all those chilets that I used to have problems with. I'm like, here's a guy who's about 6'2", walking around. I'm not that bad. So a bit of self-confidence grew. And I think that's where a lot of the confidence, the issues that I had that I never had, that period of high school where I didn't have that self-confidence and worth, a lot of it came after, you know. So, and I go back to Johari Clef.
Oh, you went back, eh?
Yeah. Okay. Bruce, because I'm like, okay, now what do I do? So I go back to Johari Clef and I find Mr. Mandugu Digital is now the guy. And of course, in 2001, because we came back in 2002, guess who else is ruling the airways? One Robert Kamanzi.